Welcome back to our channel, the place where hidden chapters, royal secrets, and the stories the palace won't publish finally come to light. Today, we bring you a breaking news: she's a monster. Markus Anderson's fury over Meghan's cruel snubs, shocking. An in-depth analysis of the relationship between Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, and Markus Anderson, a global consultant for Soho House, uncovers a complex narrative that highlights overarching themes of social networking, career ambition, and the intricate dynamics between informal influence and the formalities of royalty. This connection serves as a case study in the accumulation and utilization of social capital within modern elite circles, as well as the intersection of celebrity culture with the expectations and limitations of an institutional monarchy. Anderson, a figure who has predominantly remained on the fringes of public discourse relative to the royal family's principal members, is nonetheless considered by various royal commentators and biographers to be a pivotal architect of elements of Markle's social and professional advancement, especially during the period prior to her introduction to Prince Harry. The parameters of his participation and the ensuing public responses reveal the conflicts that emerge when private networks wield public influence. Markus Anderson's career path reflects a model of social mobility based on service, personal initiative, and a keen aptitude for connection cultivation. He commenced his tenure at Soho House in London in a relatively humble position as a server. Soho House, established by Nick Jones in 1995, evolved into a quintessential brand in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, a private members club specifically tailored for those in creative sectors: film, television, fashion, publishing, and the arts. The core philosophy integrated a carefully selected aesthetic of comfortable luxury with a clear focus on networking. Clubs were intended not merely as leisure spaces, but as venues for creative professionals and powerful individuals to meet, connect, and cooperate. Over time, Anderson distinguished himself not only via the performance of service chores, but also by his notable social intelligence and ability to identify and nurture relationships with powerful customers. These skills allowed him to maneuver within the club's environment and to shape the social dynamics that had first embraced him as a member of the staff. His progression within the firm was swift, advancing from front-of-house duties to a strategic position as global membership director for the Soho House Group. This role surpassed the conventional responsibilities of membership administration, positioning him as a primary gatekeeper to a global social network. As Soho House broadened its international presence by inaugurating venues in urban centers that serve as cultural and creative epicenters, Anderson's responsibilities encompassed establishing the initial membership for new clubs. The work entailed identifying and recruiting individuals whose involvement would influence the culture and reputation of each new establishment: artists, entrepreneurs, performers, producers, and cultural tastemakers whose collective presence would bestow significance and vitality. An invitation to a founding members event served as a vital social credential, indicating admittance into a group of persons whose collective participation may facilitate partnerships and create opportunities. In this role as a gatekeeper and a designer of social structure, Anderson encountered Meghan Markle at a time when she was aiming to broaden her career opportunities. The specific circumstances of their meeting have been a topic of continuous discourse among those interested in the Sussexes' pre-royal existence. The predominant narrative attributes their introduction to Toronto, Canada, where Markle lived for several years during the filming of the courtroom show Suits. In the show's initial seasons, Markle was an active actor on a successful cable series, enjoying a consistent role and public visibility within that environment, while the global acclaim that would eventually follow had not yet fully emerged. The inauguration of Soho House Toronto in 2012 was a significant event in the city's social calendar, drawing an exclusive and globally minded audience. Current documentation of that event, Society Page's local journalism and social columns, provides an incomplete account of the guest list and the ambiance of exclusivity surrounding the occasion. Examinations of these contemporary records, including local society magazines, indicate that although it was conceivable for Markle as a locally situated actress to appear on the guest list, her name was not consistently featured in the initial reports. This gap has incited conjecture that her participation in that specific social sphere may have been indirectly enabled through introductions and endorsements rather than by unplanned attendance as a regionally notable individual. In these reports, Anderson's position is prominent. As the executive tasked with curating membership and introductions, he has the ability to include, promote, or enhance a prospective member's visibility in an emerging, status-aware milieu. Regardless of whether their initial meeting transpired at that particular event or through other interactions, it is certain that the bond they established rapidly evolved into a tight and strategically important alliance. Meghan Markle's association with Markus Anderson provided her with access to a vast and international network that extended well beyond the limits of her television job. Anderson's connections were not limited to a certain field. They encompassed movies, fashion journalism, philanthropy, and business throughout North America and Europe. For an aspiring actress seeking greater visibility, diverse partnerships, and a transatlantic presence, such a network constituted a significant advantage. For Markle, the friendship served as a type of social capital. It was not only companionship, but a resource that could be leveraged to facilitate introductions, arrange meetings, and provide possibilities that may otherwise be unattainable. Observers and biographers have often described their collaboration as mutually beneficial. Anderson provided access to a social tier that could enhance Markle's prominence and create opportunities. Markle, as an emerging public person, added a degree of stardom and allure that elevated the status of Anderson's group. Photographic documentation and narratives of social life from the era depict their presence together at gatherings, vacations, and what were characterized as business excursions organized by Soho House. These excursions, characterized as both professional and social interactions, provided Markle with opportunities to connect with producers, executives, and designers' contacts that could facilitate an actor's shift from a consistent television role to a more varied public persona. Some analysts have characterized the connection as strategic symbiosis. Anderson offered access and a meticulously manicured social milieu. Markle possessed the personal charisma and professional drive to leverage the chances available. This analysis positions Anderson not merely as a friend, but as an informal strategist or curator of introductions who played a role in the development of her public identity. Numerous biographical accounts and media reports indicate that Anderson's mediating effect peaked when he facilitated Markle's initial meeting with Prince Harry. The frequently mentioned blind date reportedly took place in the summer of 2016 in a private room at Soho House's 76 Dean Street in London. Other accounts place the meeting at Soho Farmhouse, the group's countryside retreat in Oxfordshire. While the exact location is disputed, all sources consistently highlight the Soho House Association and suggest that Anderson served as the facilitator. Through this introduction, Anderson transformed from a social connector to a somebody capable of facilitating encounters of substantial importance. The introduction exemplifies the unique influence of social mediators in elite spheres. A solitary introduction facilitated in a confidential environment can transform public paths. The arrangement of a covert meeting with a senior member of the royal family exemplifies the trust and discretion Anderson had established, as well as the permeable borders between celebrity spheres and institutional aristocracy facilitated by private networks. For Prince Harry, the informal and private ambiance of a Soho House venue, facilitated by a mutual acquaintance, likely offered an environment of relative normalcy and security away from the scrutiny of formal royal protocols and the security measures that usually accompany official events. This subdued environment may have been especially appealing to an individual desiring a preliminary, understated interaction. Meghan Markle's subsequent engagement and marriage to Prince Harry in 2018 undoubtedly altered the social dynamics surrounding her. Joining the royal family entails a multitude of institutional norms, security requirements, and representational duties that need a restructuring of personal connections. The royal household serves as a formal institution characterized by a distinct hierarchy comprising courtiers, private secretaries, and administrative personnel who oversee the public-facing duties of its members. In such a system, the existence of enduring friends from a previous life might provide both practical and symbolic challenges. Friends who are not integrated into the institutional culture may perceive the requirements of protocol discretion and security as strange or restrictive. Numerous of Markle's old associates from Hollywood and the creative sectors withdrew from the public eye in the subsequent years as she embraced her role as the Duchess of Sussex. Anderson, however, originally constituted an anomaly to this prevailing trend. He maintained proximity and continued to be conspicuously present at various significant events in the couple's early royal existence. He participated in pre-wedding festivities, was mentioned as a guest at the royal wedding, and seemed to be included in private vacations and meals thrown by the couple. The sustained access to royal venues and private functions raised apprehensions among certain palace insiders and media analysts. The British monarchy is fundamentally conservative and functions under the premise that influential individuals should align their sympathies with the monarchy as an institution, the colloquially termed firm, rather than prioritize personal allegiances that could complicate collective responsibilities. Anderson did not adhere to conventional classifications inside the royal hierarchy. He was neither an employee nor a relative. He was an outsider whose closeness and perceived influence were incongruent with established boundaries. This atypical stance prompted inquiries among palace personnel and officials over the management of an individual whose principal allegiance appeared to lie with Meghan as a personal confidant, rather than with the institution she had entered. Contemporary reports and commentary indicated that certain individuals within the palace were perturbed by this arrangement. The existence of a confidant, functioning outside official channels, may, from the perspective of palace officials, disrupt messaging, coherence, complicate decision-making, and introduce vulnerabilities that could expose sensitive information to individuals not obligated by royal protocols or the enduring discretion typically anticipated from those near the crown. The relationship garnered heightened public attention after media outlets reported a notable leak. Tabloids commenced publishing narratives sourced from an anonymous individual purportedly close to Markus Anderson, which provided enigmatic insights into the dynamics of Anderson's relationship with the Duchess and reflections on their shared history. The reported specifics differed in specificity, with much of the content being suggestive rather than explicit. However, the mere implication that Anderson's group was communicating with the press introduced additional scandal into a media landscape already rife with suspicion over the royal family and the newly assimilated Duchess. In the modern media environment characterized by swift news cycles, sensationalist tabloid reporting, and the elevation of anonymous sources, minor revelations might provoke exaggerated responses. Headlines suggesting that a reliable acquaintance was divulging confidential information regarding the Duchess were especially incendiary. The tale of treachery generated significant public intrigue, and the tabloids magnified images, previous appearances, and trivial tales that could be reinterpreted as proof of a complicated and potentially hazardous partnership. This cycle demonstrates how, in contemporary celebrity and royal journalism, the distinctions between personal recollection, casual remark, and important disclosure can become indistinct, leading to considerable reputational repercussions. The episode allegedly triggered a catastrophe within Buckingham Palace's communications system. Confronted with a deluge of negative coverage, the palace's communications team reportedly into a containment mode, implementing crisis management strategies aimed at mitigating additional reputational damage. These procedures generally entail identifying leak sources, managing information dissemination to journalists, crafting strategic statements, and advising key individuals on their responses to media provocations. The primary goals in a containment scenario are to halt the rapid dissemination of harmful narratives, to evaluate the truthfulness and consequences of the disclosures, and to develop a cohesive strategy for enduring reputation management. The purported leak's public exposure was apparently a significant source of distress for Meghan Markle. The accuracy of the leaked material notwithstanding the public portrayal of a friend as a source of confidential information eroded confidence and fostered an atmosphere of suspicion. Meghan's public team responses regarding their locations were characterized as measured and cautious, highlighting themes of loyalty, the misinterpretation of private relationships, and the challenges of adapting to an institution with established rules. These measured indirect replies typically seek to recognize the emotional ramifications of controversy without exacerbating them. However, in a media landscape inclined toward sensationalism, such efforts often fail to curtail speculation. During the ongoing scandal, Markus Anderson remained notably silent in public discussions. He made no official remarks, conducted no interviews, and abstained from public opinion or attempts at clarification. This seclusion marked a substantial deviation from his previous prominence as a networker and social figure. Silence in these circumstances may be construed in various and frequently contradictory manners. The lack of public interaction may be interpreted as a dignified rejection of tabloid speculation. It might be characterized as a conscientious choice to safeguard private relationships from additional scrutiny. Conversely, silence may be perceived as evasive. For tabloids and a skeptical portion of the public, a lack of reaction frequently serves as a basis for inference, and reluctance can be interpreted as implicit admission of concealed information. The ambiguity of Anderson's silence thus enhanced his perceived power as a source of information. In the common consciousness, he became a representation of an unexploited repository of personal knowledge, an individual who had witnessed private events and who could, if incited, recount a more comprehensive, unrefined narrative of the Duchess's life before and during her royal assimilation. This supposition intensified concerns within the palace. The disclosure of private discussions or specifics may undermine meticulously curated narratives and cause reputational harm to both individual royal family members and the institution as a whole. The case highlighted a significant institutional vulnerability. When a royal marriage involves spouses whose social circles include individuals not bound by the monarchy's traditional regulations, the likelihood of unrestrained disclosures escalates. Following a protracted absence from the media, Markus Anderson made a limited reappearance. Not through a formal interview or written statement, but through statements relayed secondhand from a private occasion. Reports of his statements were disseminated by individuals asserting their presence, and his demeanor was characterized by those sources as composed and tranquil. His remarks circumvented direct rebuttal of the most dramatic assertions in circulation. He allegedly characterized Meghan as deeply misunderstood and fiercely determined. The selection of these terms is significant for their rhetorical ambiguity. On one hand, they serve as a defense, claiming that Meghan encountered unjust public misrepresentation, and that her ambition should not be reductively disparaged. However, from the listener's viewpoint, the identical phrase may be interpreted as an admission of characteristics that detractors have ascribed to her ambition, aggressiveness, and an unwavering pursuit of objectives without disputing the veracity of those critiques. The wording functioned as a deliberately ambiguous intervention, neither entirely exonerating nor a straightforward condemnation. This calibrated commentary was interpreted in several ways. Certain royal insiders perceived it as a deliberate maneuver, a means of indicating ongoing personal allegiance while concurrently distancing themselves from direct involvement in the public dispute. Critics of the Duchess interpreted the words as a cautionary acknowledgement from an insider that Meghan's public persona did not fully align with her private behavior. For proponents, the wording reinforced a story of a lady plagued by misinterpretation and media antagonism. The restricted nature of the remarks exacerbated ambiguity instead of alleviating it. The combined impact of increased media scrutiny, allegations of leaks linked to sources associated with Anderson, and his subsequent selective comments seems to have prompted both sides to reassess their relationship. The secret nature of personal connections precludes definite public awareness of private developments. Yet observable evidence imply that Anderson's involvement in Meghan's life has waned in following years. He withdrew into relative obscurity, resuming a position behind the scenes instead of taking center stage in royal social life. This distance can be seen in various ways as a self-imposed protective retreat by Anderson, as an intentional distancing orchestrated by the Duchess or her advisors, or as a natural diminishment of a friendship influenced by new institutional requirements. The episode reinforced a dominant public narrative regarding Meghan Markle, that her ambition has significantly propelled her rise and that she may have utilized partnerships to enhance her professional advancement. This narrative fiercely challenged by advocates highlighting her charitable contributions and the animosity she encountered from media scrutiny nevertheless endured in public discourse. The security concerns and trust issues arising from the dispute reportedly resulted in a narrowing of her social circle. Friendships were increasingly assessed based on discretion and loyalty, while associates became possible conduits for unwanted publicity. In this environment, sustaining a reliable inner circle is both a personal necessity and a public relations tactic. The relationship between Meghan Markle and Markus Anderson exemplifies the broader tensions between contemporary celebrity culture, which values networking visibility, and the entrepreneurial management of one's public image, and the long-standing traditions of monarchy, which prioritize institutional continuity, collective reputation, and limited public roles for its members. Their relationship was established in an environment where selective social engagement and calculated introductions provided significant benefits. They traversed a realm where social interactions and personal relationships could be transformed into professional prospects, and where a singular strategic introduction may alter the trajectory of one's life. However, the techniques that foster success in elite privately regulated networks may conflict with the expectations of a public organization which derives its legitimacy from predictability, confidentiality, and a meticulously maintained distinction between personal and official domains. Significantly, Markus Anderson refrained from leveraging his closeness to the royal family by pursuing the conventional avenues of publishing a memoir or participating in a prominent interview to profit from insider information. He neither authored a tell-all book nor participated in an extensive media push to capitalize on the association. His persistent silence and sporadic, cautious comments imply that his influence may have consistently stemmed more from private discretion than from public display. Observers may perceive that restraint as indicative of loyalty that persisted despite external pressures, or conversely, as a judicious act of self-preservation, an acknowledgement that complete exposure may be detrimental not only to the subjects of the revelations, but also to Anderson's own reputation within elite circles. In both interpretations, he remains an enigmatic figure inside the Sussex narrative, a pivotal presence in the initial chapters who could in theory reshape perceptions through comprehensive disclosure, but has for various reasons opted not to do so thus far. The narrative of Markus Anderson and Meghan Markle exemplifies the perils and intricacies associated with social and professional advancement. Both individuals attained distinguished positions in their respective fields. Anderson achieved significant influence within a global network of cultural elites, while Markle attained international recognition culminating in a royal title. However, the ascension incurred expenses. It generated a series of conjectures regarding motivations, allegiances, and the appropriateness of specific affiliations. The trajectory of their relationship development, escalation, public examination, and evident adjustment demonstrates how personal connections can intertwine with public image, how private confidences can evolve into public disputes, and how institutions react with discomfort when their members' previous affiliations persist and wield influence. The case raises persistent inquiries of privacy, the ethics of disclosing anonymous sources, and the obligations of individuals in informal positions of influence. In a media landscape characterized by urgency and sensationalism, the equilibrium between public interest and personal privacy is often challenged. The instance underscores the specific vulnerabilities associated with individuals transitioning from celebrity or professional prominence to jobs linked to national identity and institutional symbolism. It highlights the challenges institutions encounter in integrating outsiders whose prior affiliations do not align with institutional norms and procedures. Currently, Markus Anderson is perceived as an enigmatic figure in contemporary royal narratives. He is commemorated not by a list of revelations, but by the ramifications of his potential knowledge and the extent of his possible influence on views. This uncertainty maintains him as a potentially revolutionary figure in the cultural narrative concerning the Duchess of Sussex, an individual whose closeness is significant precisely because the complete scope of his knowledge and intentions remains undisclosed. The persistent intrigue surrounding his role illustrates a wider cultural fixation on the hidden mechanisms through which social realms are constructed and reputations are established, mechanisms that, when unveiled, disclose as much about the intervening institutions and media cultures as they do about the individuals implicated. In summary, the relationship between Meghan Markle and Markus Anderson exemplifies the dynamics of contemporary social capital, illustrating how such capital can facilitate access to new opportunities while simultaneously creating vulnerabilities when these opportunities clash with institutions that value distinct forms of loyalty and confidentiality. Their narrative cannot be confined to a singular interpretation. It simultaneously embodies a tale of strategic partnership, personal camaraderie, institutional conflict, and media spectacle. The publicly available information positions documented occurrences, and the recorded remarks ascribed to Anderson constitutes but a fragment of a more extensive private narrative. Such bias guarantees that Anderson's involvement in the Sussex narrative will perpetually incite speculation, stimulate discourse regarding the convergence of private existence and public responsibility, and function as a framework for scrutinizing the persistent tensions between contemporary influence cultivation and the conventional expectations of monarchy. The world may never have a conclusive understanding of the entirety of their relationship. This lack of clarity contributes to Markus Anderson's status as one of the most fascinating and enigmatic people in the contemporary narrative concerning the Duchess of Sussex. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and goodbye for the time being.